In this video, my dear sewing friends, let's take a look at how to install a separating zipper, clean, neat, and easy in the jacket that features a neckline like this one. And I know that zippers can be challenging at times, so I totally hear you. And they can even be a little bit scary because it's right here, smack in the middle of your garment, so it can definitely make it or break it. Now, this particular method I really like because not only it's really straightforward, but it also doesn't require a lining, it doesn't require a facing, and the result is always great. Just like in the previous video, I will give you two options so that way you can choose whichever one works for you. So hopefully with these tips and tricks and steps, you will be able to do it without a problem as well. Now first, let's take a look at what I'm working with. This is anti-pull fleece that I'm using in order to make these jackets, but I use this method for installing a zipper on both knits and wovens. The neckline for this jacket is just a rectangle in my case. Yours might be a little bit different depending on what pattern you're using or what pattern you have drafted. For our first step, I'm going to attach it in a single layer to the neckline of the garment. I'm going to take it, place it right sides together with the neckline of my garment and pin it. After that, I'm going to serge it because I'm working on my serger today. But in your case, you don't have to. You can use your sewing machine or a combination between a sewing machine and a serger depending on what treatment your fabric requires. My seam is done. Let's move on to the second step. I'm going to apply interfacing to the entire center front of the jacket on both sides, starting at the top of the neckline all the way to the bottom. Here are two important points when it comes to this. The first one is that not all fabrics interact well with heat when it comes to applying interfacing, so always double check. And number two, the seam allowance that we have here between the neckline and the garment, I personally like pressing it up. Now, if you want and need to finish the raw edges of the top of the neckline and the bottom hem, then do them right now because otherwise, once we install the zipper, it's going to be really hard to do so. Now, on knits, you don't necessarily have to finish the raw edges because they don't fray, but sometimes I like to add a little bit of personality, and for that, I use underwear elastic. I attach it using a large zigzag stitch on my sewing machine, and it preserves the elasticity of the fabric and finishes the raw edge 2-in-1. For your woven garments, you can of course use bias tape like we did in this previous example. You can see it right here. Or for your knits, you can also use a little bit of fold over elastic or nothing at all. I did this treatment on both the bottom hem and the top of the neckline. Now let's grab our zipper. And as you can see, currently it is shorter than the center front opening of my jacket. And that is because we're going to be folding the top and the bottom around it in order to create that really nice and neat finish. I'm going to start by unzipping my separating zipper. Let me turn my project sideways so that way you can see it a little bit better. Usually I start pinning in my zipper at the bottom, but this time I'm going to start on the top. First, I'm going to grab my neckline and I'm going to fold it in half right sides together. I want my little elastic to come a little bit further than the seam that connects the neckline to the garment. Now I'm going to grab my zipper. Place it right sides together with my garment, and I'm going to fold in the top like so and insert it into this little fold of the neckline. Now I can pin this together. Once this part is pinned together, I'm going to continue pinning the entire length of the zipper all the way to the bottom. On the bottom here, we have this little tail left. We're going to fold it around the zipper like so and pin. Now I'm going to baste it in by hand. Now, if you're not a fan of basting, I totally understand. There are multiple products on the market that will help you out with that. I believe there's a sticky tape on both sides that you can use. The only thing to keep in mind that sometimes these products don't work well on fabrics that have a little nap or a little bit of fuzz. Once this side is all basted in, we can go ahead and turn out the corners, double check that everything is nice and neat, and then do the other side exactly the same way. Once both sides have been basted in, I like to quickly turn the neckline and the hem right side and then zip it up to double check that everything matches. And as you can see right over here, I have a small discrepancy, so I will need to adjust this. If everything else is as you would like it to be, then turn everything back as it was, switch your sewing machine to a zipper foot, and let's go ahead and stitch this down. My stitch will go right over here. I have marked it for you with a green marker. Don't forget to start and end with the back stitch, and if you have your zipper pull in the way, then leave the needle inside of your project, lift up the presser foot, and then wiggle the zipper tab out of the way. Once I have attached the zipper to the garment, I'm going to remove the basting stitches, and after that, we're going to top stitch. First, we're going to turn all of the corners, and if you want, you can leave this little tail as is, or you can snip it off. I'm going to be top stitching from the right side of the fabric, and the point here for me is to catch the edge of the zipper tape on the other side, so that way it's nice and secure and doesn't flop around. I'm going to feel with my fingers the edge of the zipper tape, and then I'm going to pin it from the right side of the fabric. This is going to serve me as a guide when I'm going to be top stitching. We are going through a lot of layers here, and in my case these layers are quite thick, so increasing the stitch length definitely helps. With installing any zippers, I do find that going slow and steady and really taking your time and perhaps a couple of extra steps really pays off. So that way you get it right from the first time and you don't have to unpick anything. And after we're done, this is what we're going to have on the right side of the zipper. And this is how it's going to look like on the inside. Really nice and really neat. Now we're going to repeat all of the same steps on the other side. After top stitching is complete, all I have to do is to secure the neckline and the bottom hem. Here you can of course do stitch in a ditch right here between the seams. In my case, I will actually go for hand sewing stitches. With fluffy fabrics and textured fabrics, and especially knits, hand sewing stitches sink in and become nearly invisible, which really adds to that clean finish. Now I'm done stitching down my neckline. Let me show you how it looks. Really nice and neat from both sides, the inside and the outside. For the last step, let's go ahead and move on to completing the hem. Here, of course, you can stitch it down with a zigzag stitch, triple stretch stitch, twin needle if you have, or even a cover stitch, whichever one is easier for you if you're working with knits. And if you're working with non-stretch fabrics, you can of course opt just for a straight stitch as well. In my case, I just think I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the neckline and finish it by hand. But here I wanted to show you another little jacket. I did finish the zipper here differently. It's finished with a facing, but here on the bottom hem, I did finish it with a cover stitch machine, or you can also do just 2 rows of straight stitches. So take a look at this one and hopefully it will give you a couple of extra ideas of how to finish the hem. And finally, here's the completed jacket with this separating zipper. Alrighty, that was option number 1. Now let's move on to the second option. Now here we are going to complete the bottom hem and the neckline first before installing the zipper. By the way, you can also use this particular method if you're upcycling garments. Let's say you have a sweatshirt that you want to cut down the center front and install a zipper. This method is going to be perfect for that. Here, just like in the previous option, I'm going to start by interfacing the center front opening of this jacket. Now I'm going to fold this hem up about 2 inches according to my pattern and then stitch it down from one side all the way to the other. As mentioned before, you can of course use a variety of different stitches to secure the hem. In my case, I decided to go for a flat lock seam on my serger because I haven't used it in a little while and I thought, you know what, let's refresh this technique in my repertoire. The most important thing is to not to be afraid to have a little bit of fun when it comes to your sewing project, because you never know where your creativity might actually take you, and you might really enjoy a little bit of freestyling and experimenting with your sewing skills. My hem is done and ready. Here it is from the inside and from the right side of the fabric. As you can see, I have also finished the sleeves and the cuffs. And one last thing that we need to do before we can start working on a zipper is to attach the neckline. The neckline here is going to be exactly the same as in the previous example. It's just a rectangle that we're going to fold in half, wrong sides together. And then I'm going to attach it to my neckline, right sides facing like so, from one side all the way to the other. Once done, now it is time for the zipper. I'm going to be using this pink separating zipper. I'm going to separate the 2 sides, and starting on this side, I'm going to place my zipper face down, so right sides facing with the project, And starting at the very bottom, I'm going to pin it together. When I get to this part, I'm going to align the zipper tape with the edge of the neckline. And I'm going to continue pinning all the way up. Then I actually want to take this little tail and fold it over like so, and then pin it as well. Now I will take that extra step of basting it all together by hand sewing needle and thread. One side is basted in, now let's go ahead and do the other side, repeating all of the same steps. I've basted in both sides of the zipper, and then of course, as always, I double check, making sure that everything aligns as needed. And as for the last and final step, we're going to stitch it down and then top stitch it just like in the previous example. Before doing any of the final top stitching, you might want to go ahead and tidy up some of the seam allowances so that way they don't peek through once your zipper is finished. Now with this particular method, I do find that the trickiest part is actually right here at the top where we tuck in those zipper ends, and sometimes it might be a little bit challenging to get them all done nice and neat. In those cases, I simply resort to hand sewing needle and thread, and then I simply make sure that they're all tucked in, and after that, you are done and ready to go. Now let's take a look at the final result. Here it is. Here's our little jacket with this zipper. I do think that it's quick, easy, and very neat, and both of the options are very practical and useful depending on what project you're working with. Well, there you have it. I truly hope that this video is going to help you with all of your future zippers and all of your future sewing projects. If you want to see how to install a separating zipper in the jacket with a hood, then here's the video for you. Thank you so much for watching. Happy sewing. I'll see you very soon. Bye!